Hi everyone and welcome along to today's webinar. I can just see people are logging in at the moment. We've just got another minute or so before the official start time. But while we're waiting for that, if you just want to say hi in the chat box, feel free, say hello where you are in the world. Just another minute or so, just while we wait for the next few people to log in. Okay, so it's start time now, so I'll get started with the intro part, and I expect there'll be a few more people joining just in the next minute or so. So welcome along, sorry, go back there to the Connect Strategy Debrief for Hilton Hotels June DMS course. I'm Josh Whiten, your course leader. If you haven't joined us on one of these before or watched one before, so you're very welcome to join me here. Oh, got people saying hello there. Hi in the chat. So Vienna, Austria, Calgary, Canada. I'm in the UK as usual today, where summer seems to have disappeared and gone already, which is a bit depressing. Never mind. So just to remind you, all your mics are muted and you need to use the Q&A feature to ask a question, or you can use the chat box as some of you have done already there. So let's talk about our agenda for today. We are going to be looking at the normal sort of very brief refresher of Hilton Hotels. And then as usual, I'd like to remind ourselves about the Connect strategy overall. Then talk about the Connect strategy in the travel sector and travel and hospitality. And then talk about the Connect strategy briefly with how I think Hilton Hotels could be using it. And then we'll move on as usual to look at the sample answers from the case study. So questions A, B, and C there. We'll probably be able to get through that quite quickly because of the nature of this week's assignment. And then we've got 2 bonus questions to try and run through a lot of different suggested answers as well. So I'll try and, as usual, fit it all in. I think there is another webinar a little bit later. I think it's in an hour and a half time. And that's the Q&A with Professor Rogers. So you may have had a link to that. I'm pretty sure that that's on after this one. So, but we will definitely finish on time. So you've got time to attend that one as well. So Hilton Hotels background, we know about the fact that Hilton Hotels is one of the brands within the wider portfolio. And I think we know all of this now: corporate and business market, prominent locations, high-end pricing, full service. And we know again about Hilton's digital and social channels, the loyalty app and website, its own websites, Hilton Suggest blog, travel blog. But today we're really focusing on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, its social media channels, as you would have been looking at as part of the Connect strategy. Hotel market trends, we've talked about this before, the growth of Airbnb and experience and VR and AR and aggregators. But the last point I've highlighted, because this is really relevant for us today with the hotel market, is the importance of reputation management, especially in social media, which I'm sure you will all have seen how it seems in the hotel business you can't please everyone all the time. So let's take a look. So Connect strategy overview. Let's just remind ourselves, because it was sort of start of last week that you started looking at this. And obviously the submission date was the end of last week. And it's now Thursday, so plenty of time has passed. So let's remind ourselves. The Connect strategy is all about us as a brand trying to harness and kind of exploit maybe this desire that individuals have to connect with each other by sharing socially or on social media online. And this is a growing activity. Obviously, you just have to look at the growth of social networks. But it's also powered by this increased connectivity, this always on attitude that we talked about in the access strategy, the very first debrief. People are always plugged in to the matrix and always on and always, wanting their appetite for response is increasing, and they want immediate satisfaction. But also it encourages more spontaneity, more spontaneous connecting as well. And really, this connect strategy is around how we can try and what do we need to know about the power of conversation in the digital era, in terms of what people are saying about us, but also how we can use what people are saying. And so this does start to overlap a bit into next week's debrief on the collaborate strategy. But in terms of, really trying to take those conversations a step further. These were some of the key themes Professor Rogers talked about in the course. He talked about, with the Connect strategy, listen and learn, be in listening mode with social media conversations around your brand. And it leads very naturally then into providing customer service through social media, depending on what people are saying about your brand. But also there was some discussion around the opportunity to gamify conversations, to add an extra element to them. Or maybe your strategy could be looking at providing a forum for your audience to discuss key topics and trends and issues. Your Connect strategy could be based on asking for ideas from your audience on social media, or adding a layer of value to what you do through this activity. The course talked about metrics of measurement, how you really sort of can try and measure success, and also some of the challenges. And I think that's what we're going to talk about a lot today, are these challenges around running a successful Connect strategy, in terms of when to respond, how to deal with criticism, and how to ensure that your team and your brand always has respect for other users. So those are some of the key themes of the Connect strategy. How do I feel the Connect strategy is relevant in the travel and hospitality sector? Well, the Connect strategy is based on social media, and social media is a key channel within this vertical. And that's for these several reasons. There's a lot of travel-based conversations happening on social media, not just about individual travel brands, but about travel generally. It's up there with food, etc., as one of those big topics that people like to talk about on social media. There's this idea of social proof in travel, of trying to use what people have said, encouraging people to say good things about you in social media, because users will look to social media to try and work out if your travel location is good quality. How many people, when considering staying at a hotel now, will go and read reviews on that hotel online, for example? So that would be a kind of example of powering social proof, or using your Connect strategy to generate social proof. A third, a really important aspect of travel meeting social media are social influencers, or KOLs, key opinion leaders, and the role that they play in travel. They're really important in this market, just as they are in many other sectors. So you look again at food, you look at fashion, obviously, is hugely dependent. Beauty is really reliant on these social media influencers. And in travel, it's been that case for quite a while before social media really has grown to the size it is now. So that's something we're going to explore. And lastly, travel and social customer service overlap a lot. So these are four really relevant parts of the Connect strategy that are particularly important when we think about the travel sector in particular that Hilton is operating in. And I'm going to pick through each of these 4 and just talk about them in a little bit more detail and give you some examples, because I like to share some real life examples of the theory to help kind of embed and broaden your learning from the course. So, travel conversations on social media. A big conversation amongst travel brands is where in the conversation should you actually need to monitor these conversations and connect through your engage strategy. And many travel brands get this very, very wrong, and they look in the wrong place, and I'll explain why. A few years ago at my old agency, we worked with a social media agency called Immediate Future on a white paper around what percentage of social media conversations about travel happen at what stage of the user journey. So you can see a nice diagram here of someone thinking, I need a holiday, to thinking, where should I go? Or, oh, I want to go to ... I've booked my holiday, I'm now on holiday, and now I'm back home. Okay, so what this research showed us was the majority of social media conversations happen in the last 2 stages, when someone's actually on holiday and when they're back home. So this is when the user is using social media to talk about travel. Unfortunately, and actually these conversations are the ones that nearly 40% of people are looking at to help them make a decision based on where they're going to go on holiday. They're looking at other people's social media conversations while they're on holiday and when they get back home. But what you find is travel brands focus all of their efforts on the 3 numbers over to the left-hand side, that 1% of people thinking, I need a holiday. Travel brands monitor for that conversation and want to step in. Where should I go? They want to step in with inspiration type content. I want to go to Costa Rica. They're using sort of paid social media to try and step in and identify these people and get their brand in front of them. They're putting all of their efforts in the first 3 steps and less effort in the last 3 steps, which is actually when people talk most about travel on social media. So it's a really important insight for someone like Hilton to really think about, that probably you saw the dominance of those sorts of conversations when you looked at their own social media channels. Taking this a step further, other forms of research, and these are all from a blog by a guy called Frederick Gonzalo. There's a link there, and I'll share a link to all of these things at the end as usual. Frederick Gonzalo is a really good blogger about marketing and digital in the travel sector and travel and hotels. If you're interested in this vertical, it's worth checking his blog out. And some things he's talked about: 30% of US travelers turn to social media to find trip inspiration. 40% of UK millennial travelers, so in that younger age group, will say they will think about how Instagrammable a location is when planning their trip abroad. Or which city should I go to on my city break? Which one is going to look best on my Instagram? Incredible, but true. But the big number, 74% of travelers use social media while on vacation. I'm guilty of it. It almost starts a couple of weeks ago. As you know, I went on vacation to Tunisia, in fact, and it starts at the airport because you want to check in on Facebook and say, I am at this airport traveling to this place. And that on vacation conversation literally starts when you get to the airport, in my experience. Some more evidence, but more around images. Sharing photos on social is the new postcard. People used to buy a postcard, fill it in and send it while they're on holiday. It's now all about sharing the images. And again, I did a bit of this while I was away. 60% of travelers share photos to social media while traveling. 97% of millennials share photos to social media while traveling. So if you're targeting millennials with your products and service and you're in the travel space, you need to be thinking about this on social media. I wonder if Hilton did this sort of research and it helped them choose Instagram as one of the main kind of channels that they wanted to focus effort onto, because we've all seen they do a really good job on Instagram, better than most other channels. Hilton have tapped into this a little bit. This is an article from a diplomacy magazine around Hilton did some content and put this out there around which of their hotels around the world are the best to visit if you want to see amazing holiday season or Christmas decorations. So for your Instagram, which are the most Instagrammable hotel holiday decor locations? So they're trying to tap into this a little bit, which was quite interesting. Really good question just come in about how do you define millennials? That's a good question, because this person said, how always my insights manager speaks about them all the time, but we struggle to define. I've looked into this. There are some sort of official definitions of the years that millennials fall into of when they were born. I think it's from, if this is off the top of my head, it's around the early 80s to the kind of early 90s, I believe. So I know someone who's kind of 34, 35 would be at the top end of a millennial. So it's kind of that age down to sort of mid-20s, I believe. But there are some internationally accepted definitions, but they do vary just by a year or so. And it's the market everyone talks about of these millennials, who are all the ones who kind of really first to embrace digital, and then there's obviously more generations have come since then to kind of take them over. But good question, and don't be afraid to ask anything like that if I'm talking about millennials and you think, yeah, but actually what are millennials? That's great, just ask away. So where was I? So Hilton have tried to tap into this trend of finding locations to visit based on them being Instagrammable or not. So our next area is about social proof in travel, and let's kind of explain what that means with a few examples. So I think this is a good one from Airbnb, who we know are a big disruptor in the travel space and have grown very quickly. And I've put boxes in red around the things that we could call social proof, or actually on their website. And it's typically this whole bundle of things like review stars and reviews from real people. Social proof is a big deal in travel because people want to kind of look at that and get that feeling of trust in helping to decide where they go. Some websites really try and use it even more. This is an old screenshot from, I think this is an older version of Booking.com. And they take this a step further, and they sort of have this voice of customer insights and social proof, and they go a step further with things like there are 2 people looking at this hotel. There were some law changes in the last 12 months, certainly in Europe, actually, to tighten up that this is genuine, because some websites, shock, were maybe putting information on to create a sense of urgency that necessarily wasn't true, by maybe saying, oh, there's 3 people looking at this hotel and 1 room left, and there wasn't. And that has been sort of tightened up on. So you need to use that carefully. I'll share a link to more examples of social proof in e-commerce generally. Social influencers in travel. Now, these are a really big deal. Actually, I'll go back a slide before I talk about this case study I found. Social influencers have been around in travel for quite a while, but before now they were called travel bloggers. And lots of people built up travel blogs, and some people tried to make a living as almost a professional traveler, or certainly had all their travel paid for free by contacting brands and saying, if you give me a free holiday to your location, I'll write about you on my travel blog. And by extension, they also had a big social media following as well. So if the brand did that and kind of sponsored their visit, they would get coverage on the blog and on social media. That's been around for quite a few years. I was using that technique probably 8-9 years ago for travel clients when I used to have my own agency, of contacting blogs and offering trips. It goes back even older than that, because prior to the internet, in the old-fashioned days of printed news media and magazines, newspaper journalists would take it in turn, often, to have a free holiday offered by holiday companies, to then go away on a free holiday and then come back and write about that holiday in the travel section of that newspaper. and it was a perk that was shared around amongst the journalists. Even if they actually worked on finance or something, once a year they get to have a go at being a travel writer to get a free holiday. So it's been around for a long time, but these days, those travel bloggers have grown in stature, and there are also standalone travel influencers just on, say, Instagram or YouTube. This Spanish hotel chain, Meliá Hotels, my Spanish isn't good, so hopefully I've pronounced that correctly. They're a small chain, smaller than Hilton. They've got 350 hotels in 40 countries. But this is a really interesting case study because they've done lots of things, as you can see here. They've got a platinum rewards club, just like Hilton Honors. But they've really invested heavily in working with social media influencers in the travel space. And it's turned out to be a really key part to their digital strategy. So they actually work with around 1,000 influencers. That's a lot. It's a lot of influencers to manage. But as a result, they've grown to 6.5 million fans on social media, 5 million Facebook and nearly 1 million on Instagram. And now, around 15% of their traffic comes from social media and 60% from digital overall, because if you've looked at SEO, you know that often your website being talked about on social media and share can improve your organic search performance, its social signals, and can boost probably your organic presence. So they probably benefit from that as well. I'll share the link to that kind of case study, but it's a really interesting example of using social influencers in travel. It can sometimes go wrong. This is an article, a story I'll share about a hotel owner who got so fed up with influencers flooding him with requests for free holidays that he started saying no to them. And these influencers got upset and started writing bad reviews about him online. So he kind of fought back at influencers, which he saw as freeloaders. So I'll let you go and read that at leisure. It's quite an interesting take on the whole idea of you working with influencers. And lastly, social customer service in travel. Again, a really big aspect of travel. The expectation now of customers is to be able to get questions answered on social media, find things out immediately. The wait times have got so short now. It's what people expect, immediate response. And if they're not happy, they want to tell the whole world how bad you are at customer service. So it's really important. This is a blog I found a while ago it was a kind of ranking of the best brands in travel for customer experience. And interestingly, in the number 10 spot was an airline. And most people think airlines don't have a good reputation. But Southwest Airlines in the US, I've never flown with them. I don't know if any of you have. So Southwest investment has been big into social media customer service, but it's really helped them. So they're there, they're listening, as you can see, they're present, they're giving personalized responses. They're kind of owning Twitter in this case if they get mentioned. And another example, who does even better, of a top airline in this league table was Delta Airlines. Again, I don't think I've flown with them. But they respond to nearly 30% of all app mentions. You can see here, this guy has been stuck at Atlanta Airport and is kind of, FaceTiming his daughter and trying to practice her letters with her and, missing his daughter at home. And the brand has come with a really personal response saying, "She's adorable, Andrew. Sorry to hear about your experience, and DM us if there's anything we can do to assist." That's kind of being on the ball and a really nice personal human response. So for customer service in travel, how do those airlines compare to Hilton? Well, they're looking at a similar response time based on the research that we've seen of how Hilton managed social media. But it feels like those responses are maybe a bit more customized, a bit more personal, and a bit more authentic. By authentic, you could just mean a bit more human and real. than perhaps some of the responses we see from Hilton. I think over the course of time of doing this course, over the last year or so, a couple of years, I have seen Hilton improve. I think every time we do it, they kind of, you all think they're doing slightly better. So they are improving, but still maybe not as good as other brands. So let's look at the Connect strategy and how it could apply to Hilton Hotels. As usual, I've put on my thinking cap and I'm pretending that kind of I'm in charge at Hilton. I'm the big boss and kind of, you know, what would I do or what things would I look at if I was at Hilton in terms of Connect strategy? Well, in terms of social listening, going back a few steps, you would think they should be looking at those customer conversations during arrival and stay. Let's remember our flow chart at the start of the user journey and how many conversations happen during the stay, especially on arrival. That seems to be a real flashpoint of when people check in. I know we have the app to help remove the queues at check-in, but people seem to get really upset if the check-in experience is not good. They'd be looking for mentions, the official use of their handle on each social media account, but also unofficial uses of just keywords around Hilton, maybe filtering out Paris Hilton though. They'd be looking for check-ins at their own hotels or maybe check-ins at nearby venues and could maybe interject in those social conversations as well to say, oh, hey, we noticed you just checked in up the road while you're staying in town. Why don't you come visit our amazing bar? So that could be sort of social listening. Social customer service. Now, I'm not sure if they do this or not, but I would like to think they use remote workers based from home across different time zones to really provide 24-hour wraparound support for social customer services. You would also think they would try and tap into local knowledge and expertise to try and help or advise. I guess they have this challenge though of trying to decide, do they keep everything centrally controlled or give each hotel its own set of social media profiles, or maybe at least at a region level social media profiles. So they've got some issues to think about there in terms of their Connect strategy. Now, gamifying conversations. Gamification is a difficult topic and it's always the hardest part of this module. And we saw that in your answers, but we'll run through in a moment. You could argue that the Hilton Honors app and collecting points is a form of gamification, and the tie-ups with complementary brands, so other airlines and Uber, if you use these other brands, you can also earn points. That's kind of gamification. But they could also be looking at how many reviews of different hotels could you submit and some sort of reward for doing that, or some sort of gamification to encourage people to leave social proof generally, which could include reviews as well. That could be things like asking for ideas as well, really using this Connect strategy to tap into asking the audience, tell us what you hate most about business travel, or share your local tips or travel advice, which are all great sources of information to build into content that then in theory should really engage with the target audience. So that kind of covers my summary of the Connect strategy. The Connect strategy for the travel and hospitality sector and how it's being used and what's important within it, and some of my own ideas about how the Connect strategy could relate to Hilton Hotels. We'll take a pause for a moment while I have a sip of coffee, and then we'll resume in a second to look at your answers to the case studies and then your bonus answers. So yeah, please do think, if you've got any questions so far, pop them in the Q&A box, or as we go through the rest, please don't be afraid to put any questions in there. I'll be very kind, don't worry, doesn't matter what the question is. But I'd rather you ask, because I guarantee other people will be thinking the same question. I'd rather ask and try and deal with it while we're here together. So how are we doing for time? Yep. Pretty much on schedule. So let's run through the second part of today's debrief, which is looking at your answers to the questions. Oh, okay. I just had a question come in, having just said that, and it's a cracker, a really good question. So, how do you go about finding the best social influencers in your industry? Wow. Well, depending on the industry, there are actually kind of like agencies who can even help you with finding the best social influencers. Very often PR agencies have extended their service from traditional press and media into also working with social influencers. So I worked a couple of years ago with a sort of beauty skincare brand, and there they wanted to work with, I think, 10 or 20 tier 2 opinion leaders. So not the most famous, but the next level down. And their PR agency did all the research to find those people for them, reached out to them, and then they would hold like physical events and product launches and invite them along to these exclusive events to send them product samples, that type of thing. So there's that sort of old-fashioned way, or rather, if you've got budget, you can use a partner agency to do that for you, or a social media agency. Sometimes there are it just involves research of looking in your space. One thing I've done before, and this is for business to business actually, and works quite nicely. If you want to find the people who influence your audience, okay, take some examples of the people in your audience. So get a list, if you're B2B, of some of your sample customers, say 10 of your most common customers or 20 most common customers. Go and look at their social media activities. Look at if they use LinkedIn, and if they do, what do they share and what communities are they members in? And look if they use Twitter, and if they use Twitter, what do they share, what hashtags do they use, and who do they follow, and who do they share the most? So if you do this research into these kind of personas, you can very quickly start to see, and I did this for a client in the housing industry, property industry in the UK a few years ago, and we were targeting chief executives of housing associations, and we very quickly found 2 or 3 key influencers in that industry that all of this client's customers all followed. Once you know that, you kind of know how to reach your audience through the influencer who's going to influence your audience. So just by taking a cross section of 10 or 20 typical customers and seeing who they follow, if it's B2B and very granular, that could be a way. And lastly, I think there are some online tools to try and help discover. There used to be a tool, and it was, I'm sure it was provided by Moz. And I know Moz has had a few financial ups and downs over the last few years, so it may not be available anymore. I think it was called something like Twello. It was like a Twitter directory, and you could find people who are influential on specific topics. So really good question, Sheila. Thanks for that. And hopefully that helps based on kind of what sort of industry you're in. How would you define a successful, another question here, how would you define a successful metric for an influencer partnership? Wow. I guess you could borrow some metrics from, again, the traditional PR industry. So when I used to work with PR agencies before digital, if they got you editorial coverage in a newspaper, they would say, look, we got this journalist to write about you, and look at the amount of space taken up on the page. And let's say it was a whole page. And then they would say, if you were to advertise in that newspaper or magazine, here's the rate card for a whole page advert. It would have cost you that to advertise, to get the equivalent space in that media. I wonder if there's some way to borrow that kind of metric of, if you were going to advertise on that media, could that give you an equivalent score? Otherwise, you're going to be looking at other metrics really around kind of their reach, their audience, who follows them. You could look at if they're sharing posts for you on your behalf. You could look at kind of the average number of likes or click or reshares from each post. And then for your own analytics, and we've got in a week or so a webinar about Google Analytics, you can use something called UTM tagging. So the link you give to an influencer to your website to share on their post, you can tag it so you can track all of the visits that they generate for you. And then you can track the value of those visits as normal using Google Analytics. So I think it depends how detailed and commercial you want to get. You could just look at, you know, hey, we've got partnerships with these influencers and their combined audience size is this. And if we were going to advertise to reach that audience size, it would cost us this amount of money. So we've bought this value of visibility. Hopefully that answers that one. Really good question as well. Still with that there. Any more questions? Do keep them coming. Influences is obviously an interesting topic, so that's useful to know. So the case study, let's have a look. So you were asked to analyze Hilton's social media presence, such as Facebook or Twitter, a blog, etc., and answer the following questions. Firstly, what's one way that Hilton has used social media platforms to create excitement around a product or service? Here is a general answer, rather than tied to a specific channel. And this person said that the social platforms allow Hilton to tap into people according to their journey stage or the stage of the funnel. So, you know, some people could be looking to book immediately or do research or around different destinations and tap into all these different behaviors that are happening online. So basically people looking to book somewhere specific or looking for inspiration. So that's a fair answer. Someone mentioned Instagram, as quite a few people did. And here's quite a few people mentioned this example and a couple of others as well, around a campaign with hashtag 7 Urban Wonders of the World. I think this is maybe a year or so ago now, where they've worked with travel influencers who showcase their own remarkable hotel destinations from around the world, which I'm guessing will all happen to be Hilton hotels. So that's one way that kind of created buzz and interest. Couple of points about Instagram. The first one saying that actually, and there's a lot of common praise for Instagram and Hilton, how Hilton uses Instagram. They do a great job of posting really good pictures of amazing locations. It makes you want to kind of look at that place and maybe possibly go stay there because pictures are so powerful. They generate lots of likes. So this person felt that Instagram is a way that they create this excitement. The next answer is possibly more of an idea than what Hilton are doing, but more around videos, sharing things that they do as they go around the world or promote certain advocacies. Facebook. This person found quite a few different Hilton Facebook profiles for different schemes, campaigns, projects, etc. But the strategy is more or less the same: photos of resorts and campaign posts. They were actually quite critical, and they noticed fairly low engagement rates, even though there's a large number of followers. And they talked about the 90, 90 and 1% kind of rule. This person mentioned the blog, which is always good to see because it's been around for a while, but there's sort of travel blog. And then tying that up with influencers to create interest in campaigns like hashtag Rediscover Hilton to get people back in. But they seem to think that the Hilton Suggests travel blog really offers that two-way conversation and very positive stories. YouTube, there's some videos on there, but this person felt were quite short, but do showcase properties, especially new ones, that would create excitement and assist with purchasing decisions beyond just customer reviews on TripAdvisor, because you get a better idea of what the hotel looks like. That's a good point about use of video. Also, it would mean in future use of things like virtual reality or augmented reality, but particularly VR to take a virtual trip around a hotel. This person mentioned the blog again to create excitement for an area because they've invested in lots of content around each local area, but they've got a hotel in. And lastly, this person mentioned streaming, which could be a way obviously across a few social channels. And they found a quote from manager of brand social media for Hilton saying that with the emergence of new live streaming apps like Periscope and Meerkat, the real-time need to be strategic and targeted is fundamental. So they think that Hilton will probably kind of look into streaming platforms to help create excitement. So all good answers, all fair answers. That was a real sort of cross-section and sample. I think most people, well, not most, the largest group of people probably talked about Instagram, I would say. That cropped up the most often. Now, on a scale of 1 for poor or 5 to excellent, how would you rate the effectiveness of social media for customer support, social customer service, and support your answer? Now, no wrong and no right answer here. This is a very subjective question. It's a matter of opinion, but as long as you backed up your opinion with an example, that's fine. And here are a few examples of some things people said. These were the good ones, and this was quite an in-depth answer actually. You would rate as 5 for the effectiveness of customer support through social media because of the average response time is good, and they're answering like 3.3 tweets in an hour, etc., etc., and at scale. So it enables Hilton's team to react and engage in real time. And they talked about how Hilton have combined their social customer service with call center and in-app support through a tool called Expion to improve social customer service. And the same answer continued with a quote from someone at Hilton saying, "We took a different approach to a lot of companies. We want to help our guests no matter how they come to us." So they're really making this commitment to provide the same level of customer service as they would in the call center, but on social media channels as well, and really combining and integrating the two, because who better to help with customer service on social than people who are using, who are manning the call center for you as well. Other people who rated good, 4, and this blog post actually comes up quite a bit. Every course, people find this blog post about the social media case study and using it for social listening and dealing with positive and negative comments. Someone else said 4 based on Twitter, they're saying this, because they listen and engage. Another person said sort of 4 out of 5. And this was more around how they used TripAdvisor. They looked at 500 reviews from 6 hotels and noticed that local managers were very responsive and appropriate in handling feedback, including bad reviews. But what's interesting with that is the local managers, that's not being controlled centrally by the Hilton brand itself. Now let's move on to the not good. Some people said 3.5 there, because this was very common, both about Facebook. They all seem to have a standardized response and they don't really customize them on social media for Facebook. Seems like a selling platform and not interactive. Nice pictures, but if someone writes something positive or negative, Hilton don't respond at all. And mainly they only make comments on negative feedback, and it's always the same wording, so it doesn't look natural. Facebook again, 2, same response to everyone, does not look as if it's genuine, and it's just always send us a message with your contact information. And this person agrees, you do want to try and take complaints offline, but maybe you could handle it in a better way that looks more authentic. So part C, again, this is one I was getting slightly mixed up with the previous question. This is the one where we asked for an example of how Hilton handled an actual complaint, and whether it was handled well or not. And so again, very subjective. As long as you've got an example to back it up, that's fine. Just a few here. This is someone who said it's good. They found this one. I think this is on Facebook by the look of it. And it looks like quite a personal and genuine response to this complaint, where it was about the check-in process and the call center, etc. And this person explained why it would be it was a good response. Here's another one. I need your help. Your customer service can't fix a reservation. So again, around bookings, and they stepped in saying we'd love to help. and thanks for taking care of this. You're most welcome. We're happy to be able to help. So it was a whole conversation arose, and the person even thanked them. I added a note here. The person's handle was called Moolah Saving Mum, or kind of, I guess that means money saving mum. I wonder if she's actually a social influencer, and maybe she got some special treatment there, because it sounds like she's not an individual, but set up as kind of a money saving expert type person. Another one that's good. Complaining about the Wi-Fi in the hotel. That must be a nightmare for hotels, providing good fast Wi-Fi for everyone. Yeah, this person's really moaned about it, said it's disgraceful, and they've come back saying very sorry to hear that, and reply very fast. As this person says, as Professor Rogers said in the course, they respond to criticism and react professionally to keep in touch with the customer. So a few more here that was good. This person talked about TripAdvisor to make a change, and they looked at a specific one that they'd stayed in recently, and quite a few TripAdvisor reviews. But again, the general manager has responded to them and offered quick responses and been apologetic, etc. So good handling, and I'll send you the link to that TripAdvisor page to look at. Here's a poor one. And the poor ones are often really, the examples we found were basically no reply at all. Things that got missed. So this person's complained directly to Hilton, and she has had someone deal with her, but she's not happy with the response. And this person thought that wasn't good. Found lots of customer complaints on several platforms, but almost none of them got any response. So here's an example. I think that looks like it might be TripAdvisor, which doesn't seem, as we've said, to be under central control. And it's not good, really, if the hotel review says it's filthy, dirty and smelly. I think you probably do want to respond to that. Do not stay there unless you plan to be disgusted. Oh, dear. Here's a summary then of how Hilton you think they're doing. Things you mentioned that were good: responding to customer service on their brand social channels quickly and efficiently, and doing it at a large scale. And we thought we were fairly good at inspiring people and creating excitement, especially on Instagram. Some of you didn't really mention things like gamification through the Hilton Honors app, and no one really mentioned other influencers. So, in a previous week, we talked about their use of the actress Anna Kendrick, and I showed you a video someone had found being shared on social media, and no one really picked up on that. It could be a way of creating buzz and excitement through influencers. The not so good stuff. People mentioned that the responses are too impersonal and automated sounding, and not always managed consistently on all channels like TripAdvisor. You didn't really mention about social proof, less use of that, and really pick up on this central versus local control point. You kind of did if you talked about TripAdvisor and you talked about local managers, but no one really made that connection that should this be looked after by Hilton centrally. You guys did well. I mean, as ever, all the responses I read and were submitted, I read all of them that were submitted on time. They were all good. I picked out these ones in particular. So if your name is on here, I think Mark, you were on the call today. You did well again. Just see who else is on board today and see if your name is on there. Oh, Carolina, sorry. Grace, well done. Magnolia, well done. Seeing who else is with us. Sonia, well done. Oh, that's nice. There's quite a few actually on the call today to receive your praise. Sorry if I've missed anyone out there. Oh, Debad Duty, sorry if I pronounced that but really badly. But yes, well done to you as well. So that's great. Well done, you guys. And well done to you, even if your name isn't on here. They were all good, solid responses. I was happy with all of them, but just particularly picked out these because I think they went a bit of a step further in answering the questions and showed a little bit more thought or research. stop for questions. I think we do have one that's come in. Someone has asked, how would you distinguish the connect strategy from the collaborate strategy? Ooh, now there's a good question. Because you guys are kind of looking at collaborate strategy at the moment, obviously. I think off the top of my head, I think the connect strategy is really about identifying the conversations and being present and listening and deciding when to step into conversations. Okay, so it's quite reactive. The collaborate strategy, in my mind, is more about being proactive by reaching out to your digital audiences to get them to do something of benefit for you, and not just buy something or convert, but it's about tapping into this desire. So connect strategy taps into the desire of people to share things and communicate online, and the collaborate strategy taps into the desire of people to get involved and go a step further. So a good collaborate strategy is harder to achieve because you're asking a lot more of your audience, and we'll talk next week about how difficult it is to get right. I think it's one of the hardest strategies to get right. But collaborate is really about, providing an opportunity, a project, scheme, forum to let people go a step further and help you. Another question, would Hilton and Uber be collaborate strategy? I don't think it would be. That sort of fits across all the strategies in a way. You could say it's a little bit access strategy. You could say it's a little bit engaged strategy. You could say it's a little bit customized strategy. I wouldn't say it's purely collaborate strategy. If you were saying, oh, we want to go out and ask kind of Hilton customers, would you like us to partner with Uber or Lyft? That to me is more collaborate strategy. Or if you were saying to Hilton customers, what cities in the world do you find that the Uber coverage is not as good? And then we're going to feed that back to Uber to help give you a better experience because we partner with them and we care about you. That's probably collaborate strategy more than just partnering with another brand. Really good questions this week. Thank you very much for those. Hopefully I have answered those well enough for you. We've just got a few minutes now to try and cover some of your own responses. I'm going to have to go a little bit quick because we did questions, but that's absolutely great. So your own examples, some of these I may skip actually. How would you use gamification? You had a choice to answer D or E. Not many people answered D, and that's because gamification is a tricky subject, a little bit like collaborate strategy. But gamification, people struggle to think, how can I gamify what we do? Because it sounds almost a bit childish to turn it into a game. So you never really get many examples. So let's focus on these more. This person, I'm trying to think who it is, because you've put really good suggestions every week through this course. So well done to you. But is this beauty brand, and they already use gamification. They have a loyalty club and offers and VIP events, and they could give people select access to beauty consultants amongst top tier clients. But how you could gamify it is it's people earn it by doing certain things, and it might not just be buying products. It could be leaving reviews or doing this, or even just coming in for a sample, and every one of these things you do earns you more status and gets you more prizes like individual personalized calls from a beauty consultant. So interesting point there. Technology. This person would love to create a tech forum where customers can earn points and discounts off a day with a subject matter expert to train them for their next project, depending on how many other people they invite into the forum, and or if they provide more details on their case, for example. I did something recently. This is for digital transformation. A few years ago, I used an online benchmarking tool for digital transformation, where you could go on for free and complete a survey, and it told you how many, how you were performing in 6 key areas for digital transformation compared to everyone else who'd done the survey. That could be another sort of idea to try and get people to get involved and give you information. And then they're talking about tying up with sponsorship with industry groups and ceremonies and that type of thing in New Zealand. Consulting business, fill out a form with a few metrics and have it produce a score or benchmark, and then provide tips to improve this number. So this is almost more like an online quiz or wizard idea. So you go along and fill in sort of something, and then it gives you advice on how you could improve it. And they're talking about then using LinkedIn to push it out to all the doctors in their network, obviously maybe in healthcare and technology. So interesting example. This is a healthcare, this person works in the mental health space, and they could do a better job in helping clients see what the journey looks like in front of them. So because sometimes people drop out after 3 sessions instead of carrying on for the whole course of treatment. So if we could help them see the benefit of staying in treatment, that would be helpful. And they could use a rewards or gamification system where they work through their treatment and graduate. Now, you might be offering wraparound support outside sessions using an app or something like that. So you know about the mindfulness apps like Headspace or other apps that you can go on every day to kind of say how happy you're feeling, but just doing that can be beneficial for mental health. So you could provide that as well, and the more they attend sessions and the more they use the apps and the more healthy aspects of taking exercise and eating healthier to and getting fresh air to help with their mental well-being that they're implementing could earn them more points as well. And it's interesting because your audience is military veterans, so you could gear it almost with the same ranks and promotions that you have in the military to make it relevant. We'll just cover some of these in bonus question E. How would you tap into customer conversations and better connect with them? Lots of examples here. This is a B2B example. Use social listening to address client concerns and issues in a timely way. Commit to join networks and online communities for IT companies. Contribute blogs and white papers. Keep an eye on trends and industry updates. Find seamless solutions for these pain points. And over time, if it would be a bonus, that they could be considered a thought leader and influencer themselves. So nice response. Healthcare, I think similar ones we just spoke about. Veterans, we're looking at a research project, how veterans talk about their treatment and their attitudes towards mental health care. So you could be tapping into those conversations online to understand that better and invite people into your research. Beauty sector, social listening to understand what consumers are saying about our brand and product. Really at a basic level, that's a great example. Monitor ratings and review sites, beauty blogs. You could build a dashboard of all of these things and it will give you like, you see some tools will rate positive or negative sentiment about your brand. Is your brand being talked about in a good or a bad way? So there are services out there, things I think like Brandwatch do that for you, but you could try and build this sort of dashboard yourself. And then use these insights to come up with product innovations, services that are more meaningful and relevant to shoppers. Great idea. Oh, this is interesting. Personal training, targeting men and women looking to have bariatric surgery because afterwards they need to do exercise for various medical reasons. So we want to join Facebook forums and give professional advice as a way of almost kind of promoting your services or get them to post polls and results. So I worked with a law firm a few years ago who were helping run personal injury compensation claims for sufferers of an illness or condition called fibromyalgia. And the way they did it was not by selling legal services, but by really getting involved in every fibromyalgia community, working with fibro bloggers and sufferers on social media and being genuine and offering free and helpful advice to that group of people. So a really nice example of a kind of a connect strategy through which they won a lot of work and helped people win a lot of cases as well. So there's a commercial benefit. Education, I chose this one because it's in China, and that's always interesting to kind of hear how things can be a bit different. In Shanghai, WeChat is widely used. This is the education sector, and they've asked permission to join, create a WeChat group so that they can monitor for complaints, inquiries, or doubts and feedback back into the school. So that's adapting to the channel. You know, in China, certain social networks are not widely used, but other ones are. WeChat is the dominant one. So it's adapting your approach for the local audience. Hospitality, working with chefs who are influencers in the hospitality and hotel sector, to sort of have conversations and influence for hotel managers for commercial benefit. So I'll quickly skip over a couple more. Wine, changing habits and trends, especially amongst millennials, and trying to tap into those to inform new products. And this is a two-part one for Hewlett Packard, and it's the danger of a wrong connect strategy, danger of getting social listening wrong. Hewlett Packard noticed a few years ago female customers were more likely than male customers to use laptop skins to decorate their laptops on the outside. And so they thought, oh, okay, there's an opportunity here. They look at their laptop as a fashion accessory, and they picked out the conversations they wanted to hear, and they ignored the conversations where lots of female customers were complaining that the laptops were too heavy and didn't do anything to make them lighter, and wasted the opportunity in the research, and it went off in the wrong direction of producing laptop skins. And actually the more important conversations were around the weight of the product, and they should have maybe been thinking about a lot more lightweight solution. Yes, that's all of them, just on time. So I'll close the webinar in a second. You will get the survey launch in your browser automatically. Please do take a minute. I do read all the responses from each week, so it's all really helpful stuff, and please keep that coming. And thanks for sort of helping us out with your survey feedback. Any more comments and questions, drop me a line on Canvas, drop me an email. I'll send the email out. Also, the recording and the deck will be shared with you within the next 24 hours as normal. And our next and final debrief together will be the Collaborate strategy next Thursday at the same time. So I hope you found that useful. Thanks ever so much for joining me, and thank you for tuning in if you're watching the recording afterwards. And I hope you have a great week, and look forward to catching up next week. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.